Welcome back to Locked In, where we provide your intel for the modern college football fan. I am the coach, Dr. Jeremy Locke, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Chance Rollins. Tonight we're going to be talking about the 2023 Military Bowl that will feature the Virginia Tech Hokies and the Tulane Green Wave. Lots of things going on here, Chance. Both these teams are kind of in a moment, which, it may sound crude, but I think in this one, it's about, either pee or get off the pot.
Yeah.
Tulane has lost a lot of people. They've lost a head coach. They've got an all-time great quarterback who is sitting out to preserve his draft status. Their leading sack man is out. Their two leading interception guys in the defensive backfield, which is quad defensive backfield, are out. A guy who is still in the transfer portal will be starting at quarterback. Lots of questions with an interim head coach, and a head coach has already been named, so that's interesting too. Virginia Tech, they have a ton on the line. In my lifetime, your lifetime, maybe, but definitely in mine, Virginia Tech had acquired kind of legendary status. They were one of the blue blood programs for quite a while. You think of, names such as, Michael Vick, Coach Frank Beamer. They had some great years, but they have really, really fallen on some lean times. And this year, for the first time in quite a while, the Hokies are looking to win this bowl game and come out with a winning season. So there's a lot to be proven here. Can Tulane respond from a bad situation? Can Virginia Tech rise to the occasion and claim a winning season? That's what we're going to be finding out at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. What say you about the Military Bowl, Chance?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting matchup. Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to be playing in the game, but we're more concerned about how these teams play because I don't think Virginia is necessarily that good no matter who plays and no matter who doesn't. I think Tulane has some really good players, and even if their QB isn't playing, I don't think it matters as much. We'll go over that in a little bit. And then they have a few transfers that aren't playing, and their secondary is pretty much not playing. I don't think it is that important just because of the style of team they are and how they play. I think it's going to pair really well against Virginia Tech because the way Virginia Tech plays. I think we'll get into that if you're ready to.
Sounds good to me.
I'll say this week we looked into it and we got some film to show y'all so we can actually go in depth and do some more things than usual. So we're going to start off by showing some film against Ole Miss from Tulane and see how Tulane did against them, see what kind of offense they run and how they play their defense against one of the better teams in the nation coming into the bowl week. Ole Miss is ranked very highly, and I don't think Tulane had that bad of a performance. And they did some really good things. Now they did lose this game, but there's some really good things that you can see in here, and hopefully they will try to translate into this game at 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Tulane was outmatched in a lot of ways, just personnel wise. But as far as football, Lane Kiffin might be upset to hear it, but I think that Tulane, they got his goat in that game.
We are going to start off with this good shot play, I'd call it, that Tulane has early in the game in the first quarter. After Ole Miss scores, Tulane hits them right back. It's pretty nice to see. They come out here with that trips on the top of your screen on the right side of the field. And if you watch the route tree that they run up there, you'll see that first guy go straight up the seam trying to clear out them DBs because their safeties from Ole Miss like to play very deep. Obviously, Tulane has their backup quarterback in this game, which we'll see at 2 o'clock tomorrow. He's going to be starting the game, and he actually does a pretty good job here. So he has that clear out route up the seam. Then you'll see that second receiver stop at about 3 or 4 yards on a little hitch right there and then you'll see that third receiver cut his probably post route into a dig across the middle of the field after he sees that linebacker come up to attack that hitch or that comeback route, that little short route right there. And the safety's too far deep, getting cleared out by that seam up the middle. So you see this backup quarterback place this ball exactly where it needs to be over two people's heads and be caught by this receiver running this basically choice route just by looking at the defense, which is what Tulane likes to do a lot with their coach. And he goes for a good amount of yards and helps Tulane get back in this ball game after an early Ole Miss score.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that happens right here, it shows off some good play design, and it also shows that they've really scouted Ole Miss right here. Because if you take a look at this, what ends up happening is Ole Miss winds up in what I would call a weird cover three, and what that means, you have three deep defenders, you have a clear out route that's going to attract the safety's attention, and then you're going to have space in the middle because the linebackers are covering the underneath zones. And the way he broke that route off, I can't help but think that the wide receiver here knew what was going to be happening whenever they lined up in trips. To me, this seems like a scheme play. And what you got to say is what a throw by the quarterback, Kai Horton. And I understand why maybe he's wanting out of Dodge. Maybe it's not the best situation for him to be in. But I think that if he has a good performance tomorrow, he may well come back in and decide he wants to be the starting quarterback at Tulane because he played very well in this game, I think, against quite a good opponent.
Yeah, and you'll see that quite a few times in this game. And one other game that he played this year, you'd think that he was their starting quarterback for a few games that just got hurt. If you just look at his stats, just to be honest. But we'll go back into this next play that goes in that same drive on the 3rd and 7. That's a deep third down, so got to have it here, especially to tie the game up, which of course they do, as we know. But you'll see them right here, and if you look, Ole Miss's defense has that A gap just wide open. I mean, both sides of the A gap, even the B gap on the left side, looks to be pretty open. They got some pretty wide splits. And what's quite
Yeah.
comical is they only have that one middle linebacker in there. So I mean, it's a 5-on-5 box with the additional runners. So, I mean, every man is accounted for, and I think Tulane just pulls a smart move right here with their play call. After you see the stunt right there, they send their running back up the middle to go block, and their quarterback just takes it for a good 8 yards, 9 yards, and I mean that's just good football. They see what they have and they take it.
If you will roll that one back just a second, there's something I want to point out on this one. So what you said is really right about the defensive line and the linebacker. But I want you to watch what they do with the combination of the safeties, quarterbacks, and outside linebackers. This is a strange cover two, excuse me. Watch the safeties make a V to each corner of the end zone. They clearly are trying to scheme something, but what they forget is you got to cover those bubbles. You can't just let a guy loose like that because a smart quarterback is going to hit that big bubble. So the thing I find really interesting about this and why I almost feel like we're in a Georgia Tech situation over again because the analysts are predicting Virginia Tech will win this game by not by a landslide, but they're predicting to win it. But what I think is interesting when Kai Horton is the starting quarterback as opposed to Chris Pratt, the quarterback run comes into the game. And if you watched Virginia Tech play anyone who ran the quarterback, they have a hard time stopping it. And I could envision Kai Horton having a career day tomorrow. May not happen. Who knows? But I do know Slade Nagel, their offensive coordinator, who's cooked up everything that you're seeing from the Tulane offense. He will be running the show tomorrow, and he's already done that on a big stage. I just don't think that the Hokies are going to have as easy a time getting this win as some might think they are, despite the losses that Tulane has.
Yeah, I think people are also forgetting that Tulane has basically had a month to prepare for this game. And that's a lot of time to give any good offensive coordinator to sit there and go over all your film and see what you do wrong and how to exploit it. I mean, that's just a lot of time for anybody. So I think they'll have a lot of just shot plays ready for Kai Horton. And I mean, I think he can execute them with the way he places the ball. He's a very good quarterback.
And I know that you can also say Chris Brazil, who has transferred to Tennessee, will not be in this game, and he's their leading receiver. But if, excuse me, if you watch this game, Chris Brazil does not impact it. He finds other receivers besides Brazil throughout this game, and maybe that's just who he was comfortable with. But the catch here is both of those backs or both of those receivers that he threw to so much in this game and the tight end, they will be back. They will be in this game tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they got a very good chance to have at least a good offensive day. Um, I think they will too on defense, and we'll actually look at a defensive play right here against Ole Miss near the end of the first quarter. You'll see Ole Miss with their inside zone, and Tulane just kill it dead. I mean, right at the start of the play, negative yardage. As soon as Judkins gets the ball, he's down in the backfield. And Judkins ain't no slouch of a back. You see him all year running over people. He's a very good back, and he's compiled over 1,000 rushing yards this year for a very good offensive team in Ole Miss. You just, I don't think the line for Ole Miss is that good. You just see free runners going. It's like they don't communicate at all. I mean, with the inside zone blocking scheme, you're basically just stepping and hitting what's in front of you, pretty much.
Yeah,
And
what's amazing right here is the outside linebacker who comes up on the side away from motion. Look, that right there, that is an old trick. What they do is they split the left tackle with a safety and an outside linebacker. He has nowhere to go. You block one of them, you're wrong. You block the other one, you're wrong. And the reason why is this was a late developing play. They creep the blitzer very late, and the tackle is in no man's land because look where the guard's at. The guard blocks down. Look at the linebacker. Can head straight through that open gap. There is no place for this play to go. Now, the trouble that this can get you into is that you pretty much have 8 men committed to the line of scrimmage to stop this inside zone play. But the perk is they are not giving Judkins 3-4 yards on first down. And I think that was the vital point for the Tulane defense is that they wanted to make the quarterback beat them, and they had confidence in their defensive front. Now, number 6, the outside linebacker we mentioned, he leads the team in sacks. He will not be playing. However, the rest of that front will be playing. And I understand one person makes a difference, but one person doesn't make the whole team. And I'm very impressed by how they stopped the run. Virginia Tech's quarterback doesn't scare me with his arm, not against Tulane's team. I think that Tulane can hang with them, even missing their best defensive backs. I think they can hang with them. And I also know Virginia Tech depends on the run a lot, but I don't think that they're going to be able to run the ball against Tulane. They're going to have to depend on their quarterback. Drone, I think, is his last name, to pull out the victory.
yeah, I don't disagree with you there. And I don't necessarily think he's that great of a passer. I think he just has that playmaker ability to run the ball, which Tulane is susceptible to, as we'll see later on. But I think that their stunt their stunts are really good the way they draw them up. And I think that every defensive player on the line does exactly what they're supposed to do. That includes the linebackers, and one of them just gets open. And when they get open and have the opportunity to make a play, they make the play. And you don't see that a lot. You'll see a lot of people get in the backfield and miss a tackle. I don't think it happens for Tulane, at least often at all. It's very few and far in between.
Yeah, they're a good tackling team, and they play good assignment football. I mean, it's rare to see them miss something. They're well coached. I mean, they're a fine team, honestly.
After that inside zone, I think what we'll go to next is another play. Start of the second quarter. See Tulane on defense. They're up right now. Just playing their regular defense. Have 6 men in the box, and you'll see that inside zone once again from Ole Miss. And what does Tulane do? Kill it dead in the backfield.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, watch that linebacker blitz.
It's the same reason as the last time. They're stunt right here. And it's just right off the edge. Because, I mean, fool me once. Shame on me. Fool me twice. Like, my word. Look at this tackle. It happens to him once, and he never adjusts. He looks right at the guy. He identifies him, and then doesn't even touch him. Just goes up to the linebacker. Like, I don't know what you do with that.
Well, what they're doing right here is it's an old. I'm not going to say it's old. It's probably maybe 3 or 4 years old now. There's even a YouTube video about it. They are doing some of the things that North Dakota State made pretty famous for playing inside zone. And what they did was they went back to the days of the triple option. And option football, which the inside zone read is, it works based on carrying out assignments based on read keys. Well, the problem is when they start messing with your read keys, you're screwed over. So if you go back to that inside zone play for a second, watch this linebacker, come up, and he's the quarterback man. The end shot down, and what happened, this is inside zone to the left, so the quarterback is keeping it to the right. And so right there, quarterback's covered. He has to give the ball because 2 men are coming in his way. But the thing of it is that they leave Dart, the Mississippi State or the Ole Miss quarterback, with no opportunity to make the right decision. And if you look at Virginia Tech's running game, lots of it is based on inside zone. They also throw a lot of flare passes in the backfield, and I think that's playing into the strength of Tulane's defense. And I think at the end of the day, what's happening, they have a scheme that's set up for this. And if you just watch what they do right here against the inside zone, if inside zone's your bread and butter, and for most spread teams, which Virginia Tech is, it is. So you're going to spend so much time trying to figure out these stunts that it's going to take time away from what you need to do to be crisp in other areas. And I know that drone put up some big numbers at the end of the year, but at the same time, part of those numbers came against Virginia, who just wasn't really good, and a surprisingly good game against North Carolina State. So I think that if you are, like the analysts are, if you're picking Tech to win this game, you're putting every single egg in the drone basket. And I think that might be a bigger gamble than putting your money on a depleted Tulane roster. My argument is this defensive front, I think they can shut down Virginia Tech's run game. And I think that having Kai Horton on the other side, it's going to make this a tough game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that just being able to stop the inside zone, that's a big key for any team, because most of these spread teams want to get up there, they want to throw the ball, and when they run the ball, they don't want to run inside zone. Just because, I mean, it works good with spread and it's not that hard to do. But I don't think Ole Miss's line is good enough to do it, to be honest.
Virginia Tech, I think you mean.
Or yeah, Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either. Because I think one of the things that you see, like take the NC State game for example, there are times when you see runs like that, the goal line run, or excuse me, like where just the spaces just open up and defenders get there. I know NC State's a good defense; they really are, but so's Tulane. So I think that they can stop the run in this game. I mean, I'm really going to be surprised if they don't.
With that being said, get to the next clip. And it's yet again them on defense. And you just see them with this zone run again. But the difference is they have that, what you'd call, I guess, a sniffer is what some people would like to call it. But that
Yeah.
that
Split zone, yeah,
motion
that's
right
what they're
there,
running.
that motion right there to go across the field and lead block for the quarterback on this keep, and he doesn't touch a soul. And I don't know why he doesn't turn up
Well,
right
my
there
thought here.
on that end. But good
Well, I
lord.
mean, I think you got a bad design right here, and it's either a bad design or either they're just unaware of what's happening. Either way, I mean, Dart gets his head taken off. So the
Yeah, I mean,
idea should be this sniffer kicks the end. Well, okay. In fairness, there's no end there, so I understand where he's coming from. So what he thinks, there's no end here. This is like kind of like running buck sweep in a wing tee. Nobody's there. We're going outside. We're going to log it and we're going to take it for a big gain. Tulane schemed them. I have no doubt in my mind that Tulane had seen Ole Miss run this split zone play, and they banked their money on saying they are quick to log it, which means turn your hips. The blocker turns his hips, creates a lane to the outside. What this guy tries to do, 88, he just keeps riding the wave. And had those guys not been coming forward, it would have worked. Unfortunately, they schemed the crap out of him. And right there, he gets under duress, and oh my God, what a hit. And by the way, the guy who decapitated Dart, he will be playing.
so a lot of these guys on defense that make the big plays will be playing. I know their DBs are very good, and especially their safeties, and they won't really be playing. But you got to think their backups can't be that much worse than them, especially having years of experience under them, and their coaching being
Well,
really good, at least in the DB area.
one of the things too that I think is that in watching Tulane closely here just in the past few days, they are a good program. I mean, there's nothing about this team, win or loss, that looks bad. And when you are, excuse me, coached this well, I have to believe your backups, they're going to be all right. Now, is stuff going to go wrong? Sure, it is. I think stuff will go wrong for both sides. But here's what I think. From what I've seen, I trust the Tulane offense more than I trust the Virginia Tech offense. Even with the missing parts, I trust it.
Yeah, I don't even think you could say that defense matters that much in this game because it honestly doesn't play that much of a factor in today's league except for the best teams, and you see that. And these are some very good teams, but when you compare Tulane and Virginia Tech to anybody in the top 10, say it's not really close. I know Ole Miss, I mean, they had a respectable win against Tulane. I don't think that Ole Miss is necessarily one of the better teams when it comes to defense, but I mean they're not no slouch of a team on defense. They play SEC and they win a lot and they don't get scored on that much. It's the D line that comes into the factor for me. Just being able to have that big front and be able to have four guys rushing and know that hey, they can get home when most people have to send five or six.
Yeah, that matters. It really does.
Because you see Tulane do it all the time. They have to send five or
Sure.
six to get home. If they send four, they got to play coverage. And Usually their quarterback has the other team's quarterback has a lot of time, and he'll usually end up taking off and scrambling for a good game.
Yeah.
And that's what
And,
hurts them on it.
it really does. And I think that's one place where drone can be really effective if it works out for him. Um, but one thing I was going to say too, you can just see on this clip right here. Look at the size of Tulane's offensive line opposed to Ole Miss's defensive line, even their linebacker. Ole Miss has such a size advantage that eventually shows up in this game. But it also goes to your point about why Tulane sends 6 and 7 guys after the run, after the quarterback. They have to, especially against a team like Ole Miss. They have to do something to really keep them on their toes. Because if they go out there and stand toe to toe with a team as athletic as Ole Miss, as strong, as big as Ole Miss, they're going to get killed. So kudos to them for coming in with a game plan that kept Ole Miss unsettled all game and kept one of the best running backs in the country from really succeeding. Likewise, the same with the quarterback. I mean, I think that the quarterback had his moments late, but I think if you ask him, he was very uncomfortable in this game. This Tulane bunch is quite a team.
Yeah, and the last play we'll look at is here from Tulane on offense. And I think they even draw it up for us. So you'll see them Ole Miss running their, I guess you'd call it a form of Tampa 2, but you'll see the middle linebacker that you'd have in Tampa 2, he doesn't really drop back. He's already back there like a cover 2, but we're showing 3, and he just has flat feet. You watch him, he walks forward a few steps and just has flat feet, doesn't really react. And then you see at the
So,
bottom of the screen here, you see these switch verts that you saw Tennessee run all last year. Just
mm-hmm.
another play out of the Tennessee book. See these switch verts, one goes out and one goes inside of the field. And especially against cover 2, the middle or the outside of the field is always open when you give them a choice. And they take the choice, and I'm not going to say this was the best read, but
No, it wasn't.
the ball gets there and they score a touchdown. But
Boy, look
you
down the
have a
rail
guy
though, the hash
right
mark.
down the middle of the
Yep,
field. And I mean, granted, they still scored, but how do you not take that? I mean, that's Kai Horton there. I mean, the less experienced quarterback backup starting.
sure.
At the same time, though, the way he places this ball, it's immaculate. I mean, puts it
Yeah, it is.
right in a bucket. Watch this right here. I mean, you couldn't
Oh yeah.
really place that any better, and they score a touchdown because of it.
Now, here's the thing too. Two things I want to talk about. He is open.
Oh, he's
A lot
open.
of people would not say this outside receiver on the numbers that scored a touchdown is open. He is open.
Yeah, look at the
The
separation from the break.
defensive back, yes, that's exactly it. He was just able to close on him quickly. Okay. The other thing I want you to maybe explain a little more deeply. Tell people what you mean whenever you're saying that the safeties are standing flat-footed. What does that mean, and how does that translate in a game?
So if you ever have been around football, you'll hear always stay on your toes, never be caught standing still. Well, it's because plays like this, you'll either get knocked out or you'll either have something ran right behind you. I mean, if you're a safety, the first thing you're doing as a safety playing cover 3, you're dropping back. You're taking a few steps back. The first thing you're doing in Tampa 2 is, I guess, that safety or middle linebacker out there. Um, you should probably be dropping back at least a few steps, and the dude just creeps forward 2 steps and stands there. Stands there. When you
Oh,
stand there, you got to start your momentum all the way back in. You have to jab into the ground and then start running after you turn your hips. While these
so,
guys from Tulane are already running 10 yards down the field,
yep.
and by the time you get into your motion, he's not even flipped his hips yet, and he's at the same level as the receiver that's about to run right behind him. So once there's a good rule, at least on the line, and I mean it's true for DBs and wide receivers just the same. But once his hips beat yours, it's over. You're finished. The rep is done on your part, and the only thing you can do is fight back. And you see him get his hips flipped a little late, and he's 10 yards away from the guy.
And no doubt the linebacker who drops and plays in the center of the field. Now, I'll say this. When we say Tampa 2, what we mean are these two safeties are going to guard the halves of the field. So if you could imagine from where they're standing, the field is cut in two halves. They defend all the way to the back of the end zone. They pick up any receiving thread that comes. Okay, cover 2 also means that underneath the cornerbacks are going to stay within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. They cover short routes. The risk you run on this play or on this defense is that linebacker. If you watch this play unfold, he has no business guarding this outside receiver coming in. And he almost looks like he's jogging toward him. He's not really jogging, he's running. It's just that a Division I FBS outside wide receiver is way faster than an inside linebacker. Also, to your point about him sitting flat-footed and stepping forward, he is a linebacker. Tampa 2 is an NFL defense. You have specialists who play that position. They're hybrids. This player is not a hybrid. I mean, he may be told he's hybrid, but he's not a defensive back type. He's a run stopper. And he shows you he's a run stopper because his first steps are where?
Forward.
Toward the line of scrimmage, even though he's 15 yards back. He's just doing what he does.
Yeah, I mean, that's drilled in your head as a linebacker. Your first steps are always forward. So, I mean, it makes sense. But, I mean, you'd think they'd teach their defense better than to do that. The next thing we're going to look at is some film from the SMU and Tulane game. And SMU, you know, they played Ole Miss week 2. So, I mean, it's a good Ole Miss team. That's Tulane off of, I think, 14 straight victories at that point. They come in, they play a good game against them. Well, this game against SMU was the last game they played. It was championship for the American Conference at the end of the season. So, I mean, they just played this game. And you'll see some very important factors that will affect the game coming up tomorrow. We'll start here with this throw. Now, you see their D-line, Tulane that is, react to this this play action handoff right here. He just fakes like he's giving the ball. And you see all 3 linebackers almost just come in immediately. And what does that do? Clears out the middle of the field for that tight end to just slip far enough right behind the linebackers and catch that pass. So, I mean, you think, well, you know, we key in on the run and we key in on the inside zones. It's like, yeah, you'll send your 6 players, 7 players, and you'll have that dialed in. But what are you going to do when they just throw it right over you for doing that? SMU knew what Tulane was going to do, and they drew it up. SMU ain't no slouch of a team either. They drew it up,
No,
and they beat Tulane where they knew they could.
that's it. And, you know, they also did this. Freshman quarterback, he's in because of injury. Good for them. I mean, they had a game plan. They stuck with it. It's a close game. They won.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive, even if the throws weren't always that great. Still impressive.
And I'll tell you, too, something just to point out about this SMU team. You know, I think people ought to be more familiar with them. Look at the size of those boys.
I mean, there's some big boys.
I mean, that's a football team right there.
They're
That's
a
some
lot bigger
big,
than
big kids.
Tulane.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, one thing I'd like to point out about Tulane, and I know they aren't playing, but you can see how well their defensive backs are taught. We'll go through this right here. And while it is a completion and the dude is seemingly open and catches the ball, he gets a hit laid on him, and it's a debatably catchable ball. So you can see it right here where the ball hits the ground, and I don't think he maintained possession, but that safety is taught to play the man. Play the man first, because as a safety, you're taught one person plays the man, one person plays the ball. That way you can get a pick, and no matter what, they won't complete the pass. Well, he comes in and he lays a good hit, and I honestly don't think it should have been a pass because I don't think he maintained possession. But it's called a completion. But I mean, they play through the whistle and they play hard football. It's really fun to watch them,
And the safety right there that just made that big hit, he is playing tomorrow.
and that says something. That really helps them.
Yeah, he's a
Um,
difference maker. He really is. What's his name here? Contrell Webb.
that is something. Now
Yeah,
I'm not always too impressed by their linebacking play. I'm really not. But you watch right here their outside linebacker on this play, and he just stays in his space and he just hovers. Um, so I think they're running a cover 3 here of a sort, and they're still sending their 5 guys. And I think they even have a spy on the QB because they know what happens to them. Quarterbacks like to run against this Tulane team, and you'll see them just absolutely stare the quarterback down and find out where the ball's going and stay in that zone. And what does he do? He comes down with a good pick. I mean,
yeah.
that's an athletic play to make. I mean, I know he's an outside backer, but that's an athletic play to make. And I think he should be playing tomorrow too.
He will be. Yes, he will be.
So I mean, they have some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. I'm
And
really
I'll tell you
excited to
too,
see it.
it makes a big difference that they have starting safety and starting corner who will be playing tomorrow. That makes a big difference in my mind. If you had two of the positions out, that's trouble. I think you can handle a mix better. So, I mean, I think that works for them.
Now that we've looked at Tulane a little bit, it's time to take our way over to Virginia Tech and see one of their games. They played Louisville this year, and Louisville's ranked 15th right now. And they're going to be playing USC after the Virginia Tech game with Tulane. And Louisville's a good team; they're solid, but I don't think Louisville is a world beater team. But the big key about this game is that Louisville does a lot of things similar to Tulane. They're about like Tulane, just probably with some better athletes on their team. Just being honest, and that's where they get their 15th ranking in a harder conference. So we'll go through this game, just looking at what we should expect to see from the Tulane Virginia Tech game tomorrow because the two teams are similar. And the first thing you'll notice here is a nice heavy blitz with how many people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what happens? That edge rusher right there. And that edge rusher makes a huge difference because what does he do? He makes the tackle off of that tackle.
Yep.
Makes the tackle choose between two people. And what does the tackle do? He
Right.
chooses no one. He
That's right.
chooses to
It's
block
very,
air. It's very
yep.
Tulane-esque. I mean,
That's what I was going to say. It's a very Tulane move.
we've saw it countless times if we've went over the Tulane film. And I don't think it's much different tomorrow. The next
Now,
play that go
something
ahead.
I want to point out about this one. Virginia Tech can put themselves into some of the worst positions with play calling. They're not that great on offense. I mean, I know that the quarterback ended up with some decent numbers by the end of the year, and he doesn't turn the ball over that much. They do fumble a little bit. I think he only had 3 interceptions. But the thing of it is, they love to throw deep to the flats, like swing passes, motion, like orbit motion by the quarterback to the flats. Teams stop them. They just dead stop them. And so all of a sudden, it's like you run previous play, you're sacked. You're telling me that your best answer is to come back with a bubble in the flats 5 yards behind the line. That's your best call. You better find an offensive coordinator, is all I can say.
Yeah, and
So
if
a
you
lot of the things that Virginia Tech does is self-inflicted.
Yeah, and if you look at a lot of Louisville's scoring drives, they only have to drive 40, 50 yards for most of them.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech just always gives the other teams, good field position, which I think will hurt them tomorrow because their offense gets put in bad positions and they don't do anything with it. I mean, you're throwing a little screen pass on 3rd and 19. Like, what are you hoping for here? Like, I honestly don't know.
And most teams, if they're going to throw a screen, it's a tailback screen they're going to throw.
Yeah,
And
but
you see that occasionally, but this, I mean, you run the risk of punting from the end zone.
and like God's honest truth, like what do you expect here? Because I mean,
Sure, look at them.
just the way that the Louisville defense is set up. You run a tunnel screen. You're running right in the outside backer. You run a regular wide receiver screen, and um, the number 2 receiver down here goes out to block the man on the outside receiver. Well, you know what? He's going to be having inside leverage, which means that the corner will have the sideline, and then he's going to have to run right back into the safety brought down. So I mean,
And then the one linebacker on the left side, or the inside linebacker,
I
he's set
mean,
up as a two-way player. I mean, they know they're going to throw the football. They're not worried about the run. So he's straddling the defensive end's outside leg. He's ready to go outside. He knows what's coming.
so I mean, you just watch it right here, and I think Tulane with the way their defensive players are, they're very athletic, a lot like Louisville's, and I think we'll see something like this tomorrow if they try to run a screen here. And that's just it being killed dead in the backfield with 4 players right there, piling
And
on.
I mean, if we're being honest, that just looks like a bad like a bad high school team trying to block that.
I
I mean,
don't.
it's no offense to it.
The play design is terrible because
What are they trying to accomplish here?
you have the outside receiver blocking that corner, just man on man,
And
and and
nobody
you
on the number 2 defender.
no, and you give him a straight shot to just go kill that wide receiver. When instead you could just toss it to the running back right there and have 2 men on 2 men and make that linebacker push the running back to the edge, over to the sideline. And I think
So
you get a lot more yards doing that.
okay, so here's my question: if you're, I don't know, man, I don't even know if I can play devil's advocate on that because I mean, 23 clearly bubbles. But
Yeah,
how do you not have a call in there? And I know that the quarterback's young and he's it's a work in progress with him learning the playbook. But what kind of playbook is this, honestly?
I'll
I mean,
say the
you got
playbook ain't
a
helping.
flare from the running back, you have a bubble from the number 2 receiver, and you got a man 5 yards. Watch that! Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
I mean, they set them up for failure. They really do.
They do, they really do.
And I have no faith that they won't do the same thing tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Going into the next clip, though, we're going to get to see Virginia Tech on offense, and you'll see the same thing that we saw earlier, which is that pressure just coming down on them. I mean, you watch it, and it's just that tackle right there having to make a choice, and he goes outside, and then a just delayed blitz. The running back comes to pick it up,
Yeah.
and the running back also misses. So I mean, you ain't got a lot of. I just don't know with this Virginia Tech team. They can't really block that well. I mean, you have more people getting through than that too. I mean, they just have players everywhere in the backfield. I don't understand it.
Well, it's something you see a lot of times. I think one of the most, and I probably said it on here before. If you cannot get your offensive line trained to adjust to block fronts, and running backs trained to fit, and quarterbacks trained change the play all the way down. I mean, I'm talking when we get to the low levels, it's minor, but if you cannot adjust all the way down to the high school level, middle school level, even, you're going to have real trouble against a good defense. And what you see right there, that is total chaos. There is no hope for that quarterback getting through. He's going to see the same thing tomorrow. And I guarantee you, they have not taught those boys in the last 3.5 weeks how to stop a blitz. That's something that takes a lot of time, a lot of teaching, a lot of communication, a lot of practice.
No, and I don't think there's any hope for Virginia Tech's quarterback. to get outside of the pocket more than a few times, a handful of times. And when he does, he better make it count because that'll be the deciding factor in this game. Now, one thing we're going to look at here is Virginia Tech's defense.
Standard 4-3.
Just standard 4-3. Their corners are up. Got one safety over top. Probably playing cover 3 if I had to guess. If not a man in cover 1. You just look at it and
man to man.
Man to man. There we go. Cover 1 man. And their running back just takes off right here, right down A gap. And look at the tackling.
It's one of the things I noticed.
That is atrocious.
In the NC State game. Downfield tackling is bad for Virginia Tech.
What's even worse is look at how many people aren't blocked. Look how many people are not blocked, are untouched, and just can't make a tackle. And besides that, look at the choices their linebackers make. I mean, just dissecting this play, their outside backer, what does he do? He goes right off the butt of that that defensive end right there, and then goes outside. And then the middle linebacker overflows to the outside for some reason. And then what happens to his inside shoulder? It's dead to the world. And that cannot happen as a middle linebacker. You cannot give up your inside shoulder. And he does. And they make him pay because honestly, of it.
See, my thought with Tulane, and we haven't talked about the running back. What's his name? Mekhi Hughes, I think's his name. He's good. Nearly 1,300 yards on the season. They feature a lot of counter runs, counters, and darts. And that setup right there, Tulane's going to run the football against them. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, the thing that really blew my mind against in the SMU game, they had Chris Pratt. And this is why I really think that having Horton is going to be a better deal. The running game disappeared. It was as if we could throw the ball every play and succeed. They couldn't. They simply couldn't. Hughes is a difference maker. He's about a 4-yard per carry guy. He's athletic, and he also runs Wildcat quarterback. Reminds me a lot of I can't recall his name. Was it Harvey?
Yeah, RJ Harvey.
For Central Florida?
Yeah.
He's a good little back. And he's also a redshirt freshman. So, I mean, they've got him, for 3 more years. I mean, that's a good thing to have. The way he ran against Ole Miss, the way he ran against SMU, you have to think he's going to be able to do this against Virginia Tech. And like you say, I don't have a lot of confidence in this Virginia Tech game or team to win this ball game. Maybe I'll be surprised. I mean, I'm open to that. I mean, I guess I'm open enough to say maybe the analysts know something that I don't know, but it's kind of like the Georgia Tech Central Florida game. I couldn't see Central Florida, despite the high-power offense, winning that ball game. By the same token, I can't see Virginia Tech winning this ball game. Now, do I think it's going to be a runaway? Probably not, because Virginia Tech plays slow. They like excuse me. About to.
You're all good.
They
take you some water.
They play a grinded out style of football, reminiscent of old Virginia Tech football. But here's the deal: they don't have the players, they don't have the coaches. That's not to say that won't change in the future, but right now, I don't think Virginia Tech can beat this team.
Yeah, no, they just don't have enough. And to go in further on the point, on the stopping the run and their linebackers just never being in a good position. Well, we'll just look at this I formation just right here. No tackle or no tight end on the left side, tight end on the right side. And I think they run it to the left side here. Yeah, and they do. And you just see that hole right there in C gap. And watch this linebacker come down on this. His gap responsibility is that gap right there that's open. And that's the C gap, I think. From where the center
Big
is.
Gap. Big Gap.
Big Gap.
Big Gap, yep.
Yeah,
guard and tackle, big gap.
Because the tight end's on the other side. Yeah, you're right.
What you point out right here is good. They have been watching, I guarantee you, the alignment of this of the backside, which is the right hand, Virginia Tech's right hand defensive end. He's set up to rush the passer. When you see that set up, you have the next man down in a one technique. So the inside shoulder of the guard, you wash him down, tackle pushes out the end, the fullback leads on the linebacker, who will be keeping his eyes toward the strong side, and you run the most simple play in football, the I formation, blast or ISO, whatever you want to call it. And you're simply saying, we don't think you can stop us. And you know what? They couldn't.
And just watch the way this linebacker plays into his gap right there. Because I mean, you see that they're in a 13 right here in the middle. That one has he's in that one shade, and then the other one on the bottom is in that 3 shade on that guard. And then you have the guy outside that end. So that other linebacker has A gap, the other A gap. This linebacker at the bottom
has B.
He has B.
Yeah, he definitely has B.
And what does he do? He goes about daggone into A for some reason. I'm like,
yep.
I don't understand it.
Yep.
But I saw it and I was like, he just cuts in for no reason. And I mean, I guess it's because he's taking the block on. But how are you supposed to take your block on? Well, I'll tell you how you're not supposed to take it on like that with your with your inside shoulder. You're supposed to take everything on with your inside shoulder, and he does not. He takes it on with his outside shoulder, and he lets him get outside of him. And what happens? There's nobody outside. His teammates are inside, and they have to overflow outside, and they don't get to him.
That's the mark of a bad football player up there. I mean, I don't even know the kid's name. No disrespect to him, but that's not how you do it. I mean, simply put, like you say, everything you do, attack the outside of the blocker, because if nothing else, you put him back into the inside of the formation. And what happens here, like you say, just bounces out. And all you can honestly say, in our terms, for the right inside linebacker for Virginia Tech right there, get the briar. I have to believe that he's been taught better than that. I have to believe he's been taught better than that. And you talk about, I mean, at this point, you're already getting killed. And when it becomes 28-3, hang it up. Because, I mean, you're not coming back. You're not coming back.
And, I mean, they do it multiple times throughout the game. I mean, they're linebackers. You just can't trust them to fill gaps.
Mm-hmm. That's precisely it.
So, I mean, you'll see a lot of runs bounced outside. I think there's one more, and that's to reiterate the point over on Tulane's defense. So the last play is one that I think could get Tulane in trouble, and it's the only way that I see Tulane having any trouble with this Virginia Tech offense. You'll see 5 guys up on the line of scrimmage, all 5 coming, at least at the simulation of the snap, and 1 drop off. So, I mean, you have 7 people in coverage. You have 7 people downfield. And you ain't getting that pressure. And when Tulane sends 4, as we talked about earlier, they ain't going to get the pressure needed against the big Virginia Tech line. So what you'll see a lot of is the quarterback just take off. And there he goes.
Yep. And that's what he wants to do.
And he's good at it. And even with a spy, you're making a middle linebacker open field tackle someone who's about the same speed as him and might have a little bit of elusiveness, and you're making the linebacker do it almost flat-footed. I mean,
that's exactly it.
With someone coming downhill on him, and look at the quarterback. He's bigger than the linebacker. And what does he do? Just arm tackles ain't going to work, powers his way forward, falls forward. Quarterback's a big guy. And I think Tulane will have some trouble with him when they send 4 and he just takes off on them. Because, I mean, that guy is hard to bring down.
Now, he also had some good passes against NC State. He ran a really good rollout 3-level flood where he hits he was in a tight bunch formation on the boundary. and they had a single side guy on the backside who crosses the field. And like I've said before, the drag is always open. Throw the drag. Hits him at 15, picks up 30 yards on this play. Really impressive. Next play, hits a go route for a long touchdown. Drone has potential. And my thing is, I don't want it to sound like that we're making Virginia Tech out to be terrible. They're not terrible. I just don't think they're better than Tulane. And I think by the same token, I don't know if I would don't know if I would bet this game, honestly. The reason why I say this is Drone, he might break out. He really might. And I think if he has a big game and Tulane gets away from the run, I think you might have a ball game that plays out like the SMU game. I just don't think that's going to happen, though, because there's a big if with Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech wins ball games under two conditions. If they get about 350 yards total offense, and if they don't turn the ball over more than the other team. Well, let's see. I don't think that happens tomorrow. I myself predict that Tulane will win the Military Bowl. I think it'll probably be a close game, but I think they'll win it nonetheless. And congratulations to Virginia Tech for clawing back into decency. I hope them the best. I always pulled for them, when I was a kid, and I'd like to see them get back to where they were. And that's honestly, to me, that's why I love these little bowl games. Lots of people don't care about them. These are teams who have agendas. Yeah, they're not a playoff team. Who cares? But they're trying to get there. And that's what I think is so interesting about tomorrow Military Bowl. These are two teams with two different narratives trying to get to a specific place. And this game is going to determine a lot about where they are when they start the 2024 season. It's going to be fun to watch. Any closing shots from you?
I'm right there with you. I think Tulane wins this one. I think it'll be close, and I think that Virginia Tech has a good shot to win it. I just don't see Tulane losing this game unless they just make the wrong decisions calling it. I mean, they have the better team, it looks like, the better coach team, the better team athletically. They might not have the bigger team when it comes to the line, but athletically, they have the better team, and that's what both teams try to do. They try to out athlete you. So, I mean, Tulane should win, and if they don't, it's their own fault, and we'll go over that when they lose if that happens, because there's no way they should lose.
I agree. I think we're together on this one. Military Bowl, Tulane, Virginia Tech. They got a lot on the line, even though it's a lower tier bowl game. Tomorrow at 2:00, we'll see who comes out on top. For Locked In CFB, this is the coach, Dr. Jeremy Locke, and Chance Rollins signing off. Until next time, stay locked in.